Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've just got a bit of housekeeping to do. I've had a few new subscribers, and a couple of new subscribers are asking a few details. So I'm just going to start with showing you where my Facebook group is. So if you go to Facebook, you can either find me personally, but I can't take any more friends because 5,000 is the maximum. So what I've done is I've started a group that's called Tracy Evans Craft Addicts Create, Share, Inspire. And in that group, we all share our inspiration with my designs, and it's a lovely, friendly group. And I've also got in there a whole list of workshops. So I've got it in a PDF format. And then if I just scroll down, it should be near the top. Just make your eyes go funny. I've also got an album that shows all my workshops as well, should you wish to attend a workshop. So if you literally go to my group on Facebook, that will give you all the information about my new releases. I also post that on my timeline and also post the projects that I create. So just a little bit of housekeeping there. Now, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I've done a few snippets, so I wanted to do something that's a little bit more detailed and maybe something a little bit different. So I was looking in my products. I often have a little tidy up or a little clear out and just see what products I haven't used for a couple of weeks. I use alcohol inks quite frequently on the gel press, and I've got this, it's called alcohol ink cardstock, and it's in black, and it's sort of like a coated card. It sort of feels almost velvety in a way, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to use some alcohol inks on there. Now, of course, when you first think about alcohol inks, they're translucent, so what you need to do is layer something excuse me, layer something down first, then we can add the translucent inks over the top. I've got so much stuff all over my fingers. So what I've got is I've got the Snow Cap mixative, which you have to give a good shake. I've also got the Alloy Sterling, which you also have to give a shake because that's got a ball bearing in, and it's a mixative. So this is a mixative, the actual Snow Cap, and this is like an alloy, so like has a metallic look. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use alcohol inks, Purple Twilight and Aquamarine, mainly because those are the colours I've got, so why not use them? I'm also going to be using alcohol ink blending solution. Now, I just need to mention a couple of safety things. When you're using alcohol, so while I'm doing the shaking here, just off camera, you don't need to see me shaking this, just giving it a good shake. When you're using alcohol inks, you need to work in a well-ventilated room, so open your doors or your window. Now, we use minimal alcohol. It's not, you hardly use any. But as a demonstrator, I need to give those warnings that you should have the window open and have some ventilation, especially with the blending solution. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to have this little puffy thing. I know Tim's got one. This is just one I got off Amazon. So it's just got this puffer thing. Never, ever, ever use a straw. You're using alcohol inks, so don't use a straw. You know, you just need to make sure that you don't use a straw. Don't blow your alcohol inks because then you can breathe them back. So you just don't want to be doing that. So I'm just giving this a good shake just to make sure. So just decide what colours you're going to use, and I've stuck to 2 colours. It's entirely up to you which colours you want to use. So what I'm going to do is grab my card. Now, these card pieces come in size 5 by, these were pre-cut 5 by 7 inches. And what I've done is I've cut mine to 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. That's just like the size I like to work on. So this is 4.5 by 6.5. And what I'm going to do, let's just take the lid off the blending solution, and we'll take the lid off the Snow Cap mixative. And what I'm going to do is just add some of this Snow Cap mixative and just add a little bit of the blending solution. No thought in that whatsoever. And then I'm just going to turn the card and just blow it with my blower. and you just want to get some nice patterns. You're not aiming for a flower shape or anything like that. What you're doing is you're aiming for a background. So just give it a little bit. So I've got some of these nice flicky off areas. So I want to cover a little bit more of the card, but I don't want to cover the whole card. That's me personally, just because I don't want to cover it all. If you want to cover yours all, that's entirely up to you. So just turn the card a little bit, just so I can add a little bit more blending solution and just puff that a little bit more. Just add a little bit more blending solution, and I just want to explain a few things. So I'm getting a nice little pattern here. What I want to explain is obviously where you've got these areas here where it's lighter, it's more translucent, so therefore the alcohol inks won't show much there, but I like that effect of having some lighter areas in there. It makes me happy, and I like that we've got this elongated sort of area here, so that makes me happy. I think I'm just going to add a little bit more whiteness just here with a little bit more of the blending solution, and then I'm just turning the card. Let's put a little bit of white on there, mainly because we've got some blending solution. Let's add a little bit more blending solution. I don't want it where it just looks like a blob. I want it to look more like a pattern. And you can use two hands if you want. Now it's up to you whether when you've looked at your artwork you want to add more or less white to your project. I quite like that area is covered quite nicely for me. Maybe what I'm just thinking is by the time I add some flowers, maybe we should add a little bit of white here, just so that by the time we add some flowers, we've got some of the white here as well. So just spread that out a little bit. I have got one that I've done before, but it's up to me then. I can decide which one I want to use, because each background always looks completely different. So just spread that over. So what that gives me is, because that white layer is down there and it gives me an opaque layer, so it gives me a layer that means I can layer something on the top that's translucent and we'll be able to see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my purple twilight. Let's just press this down a little bit. There we go. Let me just press that down a bit. Don't think my phone's just in there. There we go. So what I'm going to use is the purple twilight, and I'm going to add some of that on top, and you can just straight away just flick that with your puffer. Now if you want to lighten the colour, you can add some blending solution so that you get some lighter areas of the colour. Go quite close sometimes and then it'll flick out a little bit more. So you can use the neat colour if you want, and if you get a bit closer, it just flicks out a little bit more. So it's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to add layers of this colour. Just flick that. And you can add some blending solution if you want to add a few more flicks. Obviously where it touches the black card, it's translucent, so you're not going to see these areas here, but that is absolutely fine. What I'm going to do then is take some aquamarine, so just add some blue. And what I tend to find is I like to work with one drop at a time. It's just what I like. I don't like to work with too much alcohol too quickly. So I do like to just take my time and just move your card around. Now, say it dries too quick, then just add a little bit of blending solution just to move it a little bit more. Just have a little bit of blue down here, and this time let's add a little bit of blending solution to that. And just keep moving. There we go. Now you can then just layer some more on the top if you wish. Say you decide, no, I want a little bit more purple. You can layer that over the top and the colour is then a little bit darker. So it's entirely up to you whether you just want to add a little bit more colour over the top. So I'm just going to do that. Just add a little bit of colour over the top. And still, what the good thing about this is that you can keep adding to it. So if I want, I can add a little bit more white here, just like this, with a little bit of blending solution. And then I can add a little bit more of the white if I wish. You can use compressed air as well. If you want to use compressed air, you can use that as well. It's entirely up to you. So I just find it a little bit more controlled when I'm using this. So it's entirely up to you what you use. And just experiment a bit. If you want to add a little bit of white on the top, you can add a little bit of white on the top as well. It's entirely up to you. So just decide how you want to play with it. I quite like the background. I do like having the sort of lighter and darker areas. Just going to give my hand a little wipe. As I said, I have got one of these done previously because I was playing just to see if I liked the effect. So just so you can see that. So what I want to do now is move these out of the way. And I just want to take a little bit of my mixative. So this is called Alloy Sterling. Just take that off in case I need that. So this is called Alloy Sterling. And I'm just going to add a little bit with the blending solution. Just add a little bit and it just brightens the whole area. So just take your time. You can add your blending solution. So it just adds a little bit of that metallic touch, and you can keep adding a little bit of blending solution and it just thins that out a little bit. So let's add a little bit of the alloy here. Turn it round, add a little bit of the blending solution. And I can add a little bit more blending solution. I love how it moves out when I add some more blending solution. So it's entirely up to you. That is just about right for me. Just love that. Right. And it's funny, the more practice you have, the more you decide whether you need more or less ink. So what you can see is I like how when you add more blending solution, it's sort of, you've got these edgy little bits. So I really like that. I absolutely love it. Now what you need to do is just give that, I mean it dries almost instantly, but just give it a few moments just to settle a bit before we do the next bit. So whilst we wait for that, let's grab some card. So I'm going to use my Canson Bristol smooth card, and what I like is it's a bright white paper. It's heavyweight and it's a bright white. It's 250, do they call it pounds? I'm used to calling it GSM, but it's Bristol and it's heavy white, bright white paper. And I like using the Bristol Smooth for my Ecoline pens. Let's just wipe a little bit of this up just so that we've got a little bit of a clean area. But you can see now, just look at that. Does it look fab? But we haven't finished quite yet. Let's move that wet. So what I'm going to do is just add some stamping now. Let me just move this card out of the way. So what I want to do is I want to use this stamp set, which is my Woodland stamp set. And it's stamp set 661. And I want to use this gerbera here, and I want to use the foxglove. So we need to stamp. What you need to do is you need to stamp the foxglove 3 times. I'm only going to stamp it once because you don't need to see me stamp it 3 times. But you need to stamp that 3 times with black VersaFine Clair ink, or Nocturne as it's called. So I'll just do 1 because you don't need to see me do 3. So just stamp the 3 onto your Bristol Smooth card. Now please remember, this is a very smooth card, so because of that you'll need to blot or dry your ink. Let's just place that back. And if, like me, you're touching those stamps, just make sure that you wipe your fingers. And what you need is 2 of the gerbras. Again, I will just stamp 1. You don't need me to stamp 2 of the gerbras. So 2 gerbras, 3 foxglove. Just because it'll give nice balance with those 5 flowers. There we go. And again, I'll just give my fingers a wipe, just because they just get covered. Now what I want you to do is I want you to blot that image. Copy of paper. That Bristol Smooth is exactly what it says. It's smooth. So because it's smooth, the ink's going to be sitting on the top. So you just need to give that a blot because that ink will just sit on the top. And then what we're going to do is colour the images. Now I'm just going to colour 1 image. You don't need to see me colour all of them. Excuse me. And I'm using my Ecoline brush pens. This one is Pastel Violet and this one is Ultramarine Violet. So Ultramarine Violet and Pastel Violet. And then I'm using 2 greens. I'm using bronze green and green, just so that you know the colours that I'm using. First of all, I'm going to make sure that my brush is clean, because the amount of colours I use, it wouldn't surprise me if it's not got the right colour on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay some of my Pastel Violet. So I'm just going to lay the Pastel Violet, and what I'm doing is I'm applying some here and some at the tip, but I'm leaving a little bit of a white area, just so that that white area is visible. So I'm just leaving some of that white area, and what I'm going to do is just do part of the flower, because I know you don't want to watch me necessarily to colour all the flower. So just apply the Pastel Violet just to both top and bottom and leave like a white area. And then what I'm going to do is take the Ultramarine Violet and just scribble that on my non-stick craft sheet. And then I'm going to pick my paintbrush up and just pick up a little bit of that violet, and then I'm just going to add, let's take a little bit of that off, just add a little bit of that colour just to the edge, just to give a little bit of shading to the flower. So you do that top here and at the bottom here, just to give you a little bit of shading and to also echo the colours that are in the background of the card. And what I want you to do then is we'll just leave it at that. I then want you to do the same with the greenery. Just apply the green first. I'm just going to leave a little bit of highlight, and then I'm going to take the bronze green, scribble that onto my non-stick craft sheet, and then I'm going to take the water, pick up that, and I'm going to blend the 2 colours together, just so it looks a little bit more realistic with a little bit of a two-tone leaf. So that's all I want you to do with the flowers. I don't think that lid's on properly. Why does it take so... There we go. I've got two that I've already coloured. So I want you to just leave a little white area. Okay? So start with your light colour and then bring in your darker colour. And what you're going to end up with is your flowers, like so. So you just keep adding the layers, just so that you've got that coloured. So I've got 2 of the gerbera, and I've got 3 of the foxglove. And what I've done is I've cut them out with a little white border, just because with this card I think it'll look quite nice with a white border. What I'm going to do then is just grab the containers stamp set, and what I want to do is have the pot. So the one that's more like a garden pot is what I'm going to use, which is that one. Trying to grab my acrylic block, so just take the little pot. It's from the container stamp set. Let's grab think. Yes, because I want it to blend. So I'm going to have a pot that also matches, because in the garden we can have pots of any colour, and you can get glazed pots in lots of different colours as well. So it's entirely up to you. So just stamp that, and I'm also stamping that onto the Bristol, the Canson Smooth card, Bristol Smooth card, whichever you've got. They both work absolutely beautifully. And what I like about these is the Ecoline pens work beautifully. I think since I've had COVID, it's done something with my brain cells, you know. Can't remember the names of things. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving a little white gap. So I'm then going to take my water, add my ultramarine violet. So the first colour is pastel violet, and I'm going to take this violet and I'm going to pick a little bit of the water up in the violet and just add a little bit of darkness. Just, I think we need a little bit more of that. Just pick up the darker colour and just blend that out. So just pick up the darker colour and give it a little bit of darkness. Little bit of shading to your pot. Now you can just blend the colours, just blend them out. Just make sure you leave a white area, just so that you've got that. Now, what you also need to remember is when you're doing this, you need to add layers of colour. And also what you also need to remember is you need to make sure that your ink is dry. That little bit of white here just makes everything pop. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding another layer just of the pastel violet. I'm just adding another layer just to give me a little bit more depth of colour and a little bit more vibrancy. Just add a little bit on the inside. There we go. What I'm going to do is just use my copier paper before I cut it out, just to make sure I'm not going to cause too much of a smudgy mess. So I'm just going to cut that out now. Luckily, I cut all the flowers out. I thought this time I'll cut all the flowers out because then we're quite organised, and also because there's quite a few flowers, I didn't want you to spend the whole time, the whole hour of the video, just watching me cut out flowers. So let's just cut that out. There we go. So we've got our pot. Chucking everything on the floor just for a change. And then what I do is I just wheel my chair over it at the same time. Right, I'm going to grab my little mat. I've got a little soft mat. It's entirely up to you if you use a mouse mat. I know some of you have got all the professional tools, ball tools and everything. You use your professional tools if you want. I'm just going to use this soft mat and just add a little bit of shape to my flowers. So I'm just using my scissors just to add a little bit. And I've sort of just intertwined these just so they stay together, but just adding a little bit of shape. Let's add a little bit of shape to that pot. Just to make it a little bit more domed, just so it looks a little bit more realistic. Right, let's go back to this background. Now, on these alcohol inks, you'll also find when you sort of tilt the card, you can see some areas that will appear sticky. So what I want you to do, I'm going to get this everywhere, is I want you to take some silver leaf, and then I'm just going to add some silver leaf just to the background. Just dab the silver leaf just over the sticky areas. So just add some of that silver leaf just where you might get some of those sticky areas. So if you can feel some sticky areas, just add your silver leaf. I've now got 2 backgrounds. Just feel your card. If it feels a little bit more sticky, just take some of your silver leaf again and just continue adding some of the silver leaf. Even though you've got the silver mixative on the background, the silver leaf adds a different feel to your card, a different texture. So it's nice adding the silver leaf as well. If you don't want to add the silver leaf, don't worry. I end up with this all over my nails, which is hilarious because it looks like I've got painted nails. Let's just clear this up. It's a good job I'm hoovering up, isn't it? But I end up with silver bits on my nails, so it looks like my nails have got silver leaf on them. Like it looks like I've got designer nails. There we go. So let me show you the background I did before and the background we've just done. I'll just give that a shake. So you can see you've got the silver mixative, but you've also got the silver leaf that gives a little bit of texture to the background. And there's the one I created before, but this has got a little bit more area covered, so we'll use that one. So we'll use the one we've just done. Let's grab our kitchen roll. Let's just wipe our surface area a little bit. Just wipe that a little bit. So what you've got to do then is just decide where you want your display of flowers. So this is where I do a lot of faffing. Where's my 3D foam? I have got one out somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So we'll use this. Oh, it's there. I'll find it eventually. So I'm going to add my 3D foam, and then I can decide where my flowers are going. And I do a lot of faffing with the flowers, I must admit. That's just me. That's what I like doing. So I'm just going to add some 3D foam just to my plant pot. You can use your gels or whatever you want to use. And I'm just going to add some adhesive to that. Let's move that out of the way. I'm going to add some adhesive to that. So if you want to add your 3D gel, it's entirely up to you. And I sort of want it on this side here, like so. So now is the time where you don't just plonk your flowers. You need to think about where you want them. Now, the good thing is the foxgloves add a little bit of height. So I quite like the fact, do I want that in the front or do I want that behind? So there's no getting away from this. You've got to take your time. So let's move it, yes. So let's place the foxglove on first. So I'm going to place my foxglove on first. And there's no getting away with this. You need to take your time because you're making an arrangement. You don't want to just rush where you're placing everything. Just place that in the pot. You can obviously trim your flowers because you can trim the stems so that they're a bit shorter. So you can reduce the height of your flower. So then I'm going to add just that. You can also take the leaf off this if you wish, just so that you can, let me show you, you can reduce the stem. So we can take the leaf off and we can just reduce our daisy, just so that our daisy is reduced. And I'm not going to stick it down yet because I want to see where I want everything. Yes, so what I'm going to do is stick the daisy down next. Now you can use your 3D gels if you want to use your 3D gels. I don't want them to stick up too much because I want the stem to sort of be in the pot. I want it to appear in the pot. So I'm then going to, again, you can trim the foxglove a little bit, just so you've got it a little bit shorter. So it looks a little bit more realistic with it being a little bit shorter. You can also leave a few stems sticking up if you wish, depending on your arrangement. So let's just have that moving to the side a little bit. So if you don't want to, you don't have to stick all these leaves down. You can have some of them sort of sticking up to give it a little bit more lifelike. You just need to make sure, you know, you've got a card that, you know, you need to hold your flowers down. Now I'm just going to play. Because the idea is that you don't see every single flower. So let's just reduce that. The idea is you've got some sticking out because it just gives more depth, because I can add this on the top like that. But if you've got the flowers behind, it gives a little bit more depth. Now, because I'm coming upwards, I'm going to add a little bit of depth to this flower. I kept them flat because they're below and I want to give some depth. So I'm adding some 3D foam to give me some depth to this flower, just so it stands proud a little bit more. So I'm going to add 2 pieces of the 3D foam, just to give me more height in my arrangement. Let's just add some adhesive to that to give some permanence. And I've reduced the daisies just so I can There we go. That's it. That's got a little bit more height now, and I've still stuck the stem down, and I love the little pop of green. And now this is going to go over the top because it just gives it a little bit more texture. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time adding the adhesive just over my foxglove. This foxglove is beautiful. That just gives a little bit more texture. Just tilt it to the side a little bit and try not to stick every single leaf down. Just catch it in a few places. Just make sure that it's caught in a few places. Just so that you can see that, just so that it's caught in a few places. Just take your time. Now, what I want to do now is I'm wondering whether just to add a little bit of moss or not. Just bear with me a second. Have I got the moss here? Of course I haven't got the moss here. It'll just go quiet for a few seconds. And we're back, just while I reached over just to grab a little bit of moss. So I don't want too much, just a little bit of faux moss. I make so much mess. I'm just going to add a little bit of my PVA glue. And this tonic PVA glue has got less water content. So because it's got less water content, it sort of grabs hold quite quickly. So it's quite handy. There we go. Let's put that back. Waste not, want not. I wish you could see the mess I was making. Let's put the lid on that adhesive. Let's move all these bits out the way because it's just too messy. Just so you can see that. I'm going to add some white splatters as well to my card, just to give it a little bit more vibrancy. Just add a few splatters. I'm just going to clean up. Oh, I am being good, just clearing up. Now I'm just going to cut a strip of card. I just want to check something. I'm just checking whether I want, see, you can take your scissors and you can just curl the card. And what you can do is you can check whether you want some touches of white. So I'm just checking, just with a strip of card, whether I want my sentiment in black or white. So what I'm doing is I'm testing, you see, whether white or whether to stamp onto black and do white embossing. But for me, because it's going on a white mat, I can see just from that it will go on there. The other thing I was testing and curling is if you wanted to add touches of white to your arrangement, you could just curl little bits of card and add it to your arrangement as well. So I was just testing that. Right, what I want to do now is cut a strip of card that will have my sentiment. So let's decide on the sentiment. So let's grab our Woodland set. Bright and cheerful, peaceful, Gerbera, Woodland, Foxglove. Do I want that one? Which one can I have? I've got so many stamp sets with sentiments on. And of course, the only thing I haven't done is grab one. Let's grab my sentiments. Let's grab the sentiment stamp. every day is a journey. Capture each moment. Anything is possible. I think we'll do anything. Be bold, be brave, be you. Oh, I can't make my mind up. You see, if I got one sentiment, it wouldn't be a problem. Anything is possible. Let's use that sentiment. Right, let's grab. I can't even find an acrylic block. That's the best bit. There it is. So I just think the pop of white will work quite nicely. But always test a few of your things first. Don't just put it straight on without just checking it's going to work. So I'm going to stamp that with my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And just add that there. There we go. Let's just place that back. Takes me a week to clean up afterwards. I hope you're as bad as me. So I'm just going to cut this out now. So what you need to decide now is whether you want to put it sort of straight across your card so it pops, or whether you want to cut it smaller. So what I'm going to do is place this on here like this and then fold that over and just see I quite like that. Yep, that's me. Right, I've got so much on my fingers, it's just, let's give my fingers a wipe. There's white paint, there's silver leaf, there's moss. Oh, it's lovely. So what I'm going to do is, now I've folded it over, I can add the adhesive just like that, just to secure it. So do I want it there? Before I press it down, now I can press it down. So I can press that down at the back, and now I can add just a touch of adhesive just to the edge and just adhere it here. So now I've got it nice and straight then. Perfect. Just makes it nice and straight. So I'm just holding that in place, mainly because the card's got a coating, and I'm just letting that adhesive grab hold, just so that you can see that. I like that it's a little bit raised, and it just adds to it. We'll decide if we want a bird in a short while. Right, what we're going to do now, excuse me, what we're going to do now is just add a few touches of white. So I'm just adding a few touches of white to my pot, and what I'm going to do is just add a few touches of white to my flower. So I didn't add the white beforehand because when you're layering you're not going to see everything, so I thought I'll only add the white where I can see where areas need the white. So you can't see the white, so I just thought I'd add it. So I've just added a few white dots here. I've added a few white gel pen markings here. But just let everything dry before you add the white. But because we've left this white here, we've got that vibrancy in our flower. So that works quite nicely. So we won't add our bird yet. So what I'm going to do then is, this was cut to 4.5 inches by 6.5. And what I've done is I've created a white mat 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and I'm going to adhere this to my card. So just take your time. So I'm just going to stand up. As you know, I always find it easier just to line everything up if I stand up. And it is nice just to use something a little bit different just in the project. There we go. So just take a couple of minutes, just make sure that that's all pressed down, stuck down securely. Just make sure. And then I'm going to add that to a black mat 5 inches by 7 inches. Again, another 1/4 of an inch bigger. So add that to a black mat. So what I'm doing is I'm just building up my mat and layers just so that looks all professional. Just to build that up. So just, there we go. And then what I'm going to do is add that to a card 5.5 inches by 7.5 inches. So just add that. There we go. So just add it to that 5.5 inches by 7.5 inches card blank. Now you've got plenty of birds to choose from, so it's entirely up to you which bird that you use. But what I'm going to use is, I'm going to use the little birds from my Friendship Florals because they're a silhouette and because we've got this black in the background. So let's just grab these. And we'll just stamp them onto a scrap of card. Have I got any scraps of card left? And what you could also do is you could also create an insert, and then you could add the insert of these birds to the inside of the card. Little bit of over inking there, so let's just remove that. And let's add our little birds. And I don't think I'm going to use 3, I think I'm going to use 2. Just because looking at the spacing that I've got. So what I can do, because I can't judge until that's cut out, I'm going to cut the birds out and we can easily chop one off. Sounds a little bit painful, but they're fine, they understand. So it's just deciding how many birds I want. So I'm just going to cut that out, and I'm leaving a little bit of a white border, mainly because I've got that black in the background, so I don't want them to disappear. Oh, I've got an itchy eye. So let's just cut these. I always like to have the cutout piece in my hand because then you can just play around with it a little bit. And if I only use 2 birds, it's not a problem because then I've got 1 bird left to use on another project. Let's just cut that down a bit. Oops. There we go. We won't need it that long. There we go. So it's just deciding how many of those birds that you actually want. And for me, it's actually going to be 1 bird. And you just know when you've got your project. Yep. So then you've got the other 2 birds for another project. So I'm just going to place that bird just on here. Just give a few moments just for that adhesive to grab. we go. And that is your card finished. And I think that's absolutely gorgeous, especially with a different background for a change. Just looks a little bit different. Now, if you wanted, you could put a little bit of a lollipop stick like this. And you could have a plant label. So let's just cut that down. So I've got some of these mini lollipop sticks. How much do I want? About that much. And then on the containers stamp set, lost the plastic. On the container stamp sets, I've got all these figures, figure 1, figure 2, and one of the stamps has fallen off in my hand. You see, I'd have cursed if I'd have lost that. Let's have this one. So let's grab that little A7 block. And what you're doing is you're just testing whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter. You've got it for another project. Doesn't matter one bit. So where do I want this? So it's going to be up there. Just stamp that figure 3 on there. And then you can decide if you want that other texture in your project. So just hold that up just so that you can see. I quite like that, just for a different texture. So what I'm going to do is I just need to adhere that at the top because it's hidden underneath there. So I just need to attach it to the top. And that is your project finished, just so that you can see that. And the background, it just makes it look a little bit different. And the 5 odd flowers it just makes it a little bit more balanced for me. But again, just using something a little bit different just changes your project up a little bit. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I can't wait to see your interpretation, and I shall see you all soon. Love to all. Bye for now.